Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining today. I am really excited about this next guest who currently serves as the Vice President of Consulting at NTT Data. Will Conaway has an extensive background in information technology, leadership, and everything in between. He has held roles such as Chief of Staff, Chief Information Officer, Chief Growth Officer, and many more. His background is so extensive, it's really hard to capture everything he's done unless I give you his website. I'll put a little link right here to it to show all the things that Will has done in a lifetime, which would take most people 3 lifetimes to accomplish. We had a great time sitting down for about 30 minutes or so, and I hope you enjoy the interview. If you have, please like, follow, and subscribe for more great guests coming up soon. Thank you so much. Will, I'm really glad to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining Coffee with Chris. And I just wanted to take a moment to have the listeners hear a little bit about your background. Now, I know it's extensive, and so really just those highlights and the really neat things about yourself.
I'll try to make it neat. That's always difficult when it's me, but thank you for having me on the show. Great to be here today.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm Will Conaway. So I'm the vice president and of consulting and the provider practice leader at NTT Data. For those not familiar with NTT, I will go off base a little bit here and just give you a little at a glance.
Yeah.
NTT Data is part of the NTT Group, which is a large company, 107 billion with a $1 billion company. We
Wow.
do 85% of our business, or I should say, 85% of the Fortune 100 companies choose us for a product or so, or service that we're doing. Top five in our global IT service provider. Number one in data centers in telegraphy, which is odd. Number four in the internet backbone. So very large there. We spend about 3.6 billion a year just in R&D. So large there. We're a top ranked employer in 29 countries, the sixth most valuable brand in IT service. So that's great. And we go back to 1869. We were the first telegraph service in Japan. So with all that said, 50 years in healthcare, 100 clients in healthcare in the US, driving provider, health life science, and payer. The one thing I think that most people know about us is we are actually the inventor of the emoji. So sorry about that long talk about
No.
NTT. I'm very proud of the company. So a little about my career. I have an extensive background working for 3 large healthcare systems. I've been besides being the vice president and consultant and practice leader, I've also held the titles of chief information officer, chief of staff, chief operating officer, and chief growth officer. I've been very fortunate to be recognized for some of my work. Sometimes you always wonder when you win awards, maybe was it, as good as were you as good as the award? I hope you are, but you never know. But I've won the Constellation Business Transformation Award, the 150 Award in year 2020 and 2022 for digital transformation and healthcare, and also the OnCon Icon Award 2023 for quality, global quality in healthcare. Becker's 100 System CIO to know prior, and I also teach at 3 different colleges at Cornell, which has also led to a lot of work teaching dedicated courses and working consulting courses with some large companies such as JP Morgan, MetLife,
Wow.
Accor, Sylvania, Ford, Northwell Health, and currently doing some work for some very smart people at the FBI, which has been very intriguing.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess you can't probably talk about that too much, right?
No, I probably shouldn't have brought that up. Who knows?
Man, I don't, Will, you have such an amazing and enriched background. Like, when did you start at like 10 years old building all this and doing all this?
Yeah, I think I actually kind of got a late start. So sometimes I feel like I'm playing catch up mode to some of the people like yourself out there who are doing so many great things.
Oh, well, thanks. It's really cool though. And I mean, obviously you're recognized in industry too. I mean, all these awards, a lot of them I didn't even hear of. And I'm like, okay, they sound pretty impressive though. And so clearly you've worked very hard in your career. So,
I try to. I try to keep
yeah.
up.
So is now I have to mention guitars because you have a collection. And when we talk about work-life balance, is that what keeps you going? Is that your motivator outside of all the things you do?
I try to play. I don't get to play as much as I'd like, and I'm not as good as I used to be. But somehow I have acquired quite a few guitars and amps over the years, and some really nice items too. But that's also part of getting old, where some of the items when I bought them, they were at that weird age where they just seemed like they were getting older and people didn't want them as much. A lot of those guitars, the 60s and 70s, which at the time, I mean, the 60s guitars have always been great, especially with Fender and Gibson, but I was never a big fan of their 70s material that they made.
Yeah.
But they were kind of what I had when I was a kid. It's just what you learn to play with, and I kept them. And then, of course, you always pick up some items. I've got Gibson guitars all the way back to the 1920s that I play, and they're all just
Wow.
wonderful instruments, all of them. And it's become quite a passion over the years, but I don't play enough and probably have better guitars than my ability to play.
That's really cool though, because I mean that brings in kind of the holistic approach to everything. And I feel like that work life, if you want to call it the simplistic version, the work
Yeah.
life balance, right? Like people that work very hard, we have to have those outlets, those creative outlets, those things that take us away from the work that we're doing. And so I just appreciated that about you. And that resonates with me as a player as well. And so
Oh, yeah.
I just had to bring that up. I was like, man, this guy's got a collection. So really cool, really cool.
But I have to ask you, because I'm sure the people out there are wondering too, what is your favorite guitar that you have?
You know, I have to say one of my latest grabs it's a Larrivee, and my Larrivee, and I appreciate the company's history in that the Larrivee owners, the founder of Larrivee, every family member or the family members always touch some portion of the manufacturing of the guitar, and it's made in the United States. So it's like I think they originally did in Canada and then they moved to the U.S. So my Larrivee with a moon spruce top to it, it just sounds beautiful. So that's my latest and greatest. But I do have a fondness for my Cole Clark as well. So
They're expensive instruments.
yeah, yeah. So jumping ahead just a little bit here. You are in the thick of the latest developments in AI, IT, and everything in between. So what are some of the key themes you are seeing in healthcare for 2025 thus far? Because gosh, the pace of this is just incredible.
Well, yeah, obviously the AI part. And I'm just going to hit into some of the things that I think are there off and riff through these a little bit, but I still think you're seeing a lot of issues with cyber.
Hmm.
And that's going to be a main issue in healthcare. And the reason I say that is just looking at healthcare for the first 6 months, what y'all call January 1st of 24 to like May 31st, you're looking at about 300 plus data breaches, 500 records or more. Those are all reportedly OCR. If you look at OCR records from last year, if you just look at 54 incidents within that time period, the first 6 months,
Yeah.
50 million records compromised. That's just a lot. And people are always asking me, why is healthcare the place that's getting hit, the industry that's hit? And I'll just say this, people always, my response is this: if you're curious, if you work in the banking industry, your credit card's worth about $5.
Yeah.
They cut that pretty quick. Your social security card is worth about $1. So not much there. If you look at your healthcare record, those can be up to $1,000.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I always say about the healthcare is, and it's changed a lot over the years. I remember when I was younger and I was, working as a CIO and actually talking to the board. It was hard to even sell cyber to them. The idea of spending money, they viewed it as buying insurance for something. Why
Yeah.
would I buy something that's never going to happen? But then you start looking at companies that are investing and diligent about this. If you just have a B rating as a healthcare system, you're about 3 times more likely to have a cyber incident or a data breach than a company with an A. So, putting the money and time into it is absolutely needed. I would
Yeah.
say, moving on to that next topic, the AI. I mean, it's just a buzzword no matter where you go. A
Mm.
lot of stuff in the World Economic Forum where they just got done with their event. I'm going to guess 80% of what I heard. I was listening in on things about AI. Everybody's concerned about that. We're doing a lot of work. When I say we, it's NTT Data, it's everybody. And it really affects everything. I mean, right now, things that we can do just around physicians, you're looking at digital scribe type things, searches and summaries. With nurses, same type of things, call center, search and summaries, patient engagement, patient education. For the patient, obviously, they're able to navigate better health inquiries, health summary creations we've never seen before. We're seeing a lot of stuff around the clinical ops part, the quality chart review, and revenue cycle. I think is just a winner. I can remember back in my day where we'd have your whole team with Excel sheets. 10 guys coming in there, they're all combining them at the end of the month. It take them, 15 to 20 days. That's hard to have good insights when you're trying to put your strategy together. And,
Yeah.
things are just taking forever to get done. So we're going to see a lot of auto coding, CDI automation, obviously, CDS for PA. So I think I think the denials management work. These companies are all running at low margins right now would be great. Even this business stuff, we're looking at website navigation. It's going to be great over the next
Mhm.
couple of years. I'd
Yeah.
say the other thing I'm seeing right now, I won't get tons into this one, but care at home, I think that's growing.
Mm.
You know, and I think we're going to see that trend, especially around augmented care at home, which is kind of home care 2.0, which starts to get away from the logistics parts of things and get more into what I would call actually the care part of things. So
Yeah.
more of that, CMS is approving more of that, and that kind of is going to roll, and we start looking at that care at home. Just expect behavioral health to explode, and it already has really. I
Mm.
mean, if you look at the behavioral health market, we're looking at the U.S. dollars in 2023 was about 83 billion. It's amazing when you think about that much. That's expected to grow to about 115 billion by 2030. I mean, that's a
Wow.
big change. And I always say sad facts around that is that, if you just look at some studies from a couple of years ago, AMIs which is mental illness or any mental illness,
Hmm.
about 56.8 million people suffer from that. That's a
Yeah.
lot. And about 1 in 25 people have a serious mental illness, such as called bipolar, schizophrenia, major depression. And
Yeah.
those numbers are just growing. That's going to be a great market. And as I say this, I'll kind of conclude here
Yeah.
on things because I could go all day. I could talk about cloud infrastructure. I could talk about all
Well,
the
I think
other.
these are great perspectives, though. Is that I think that algorithmic delivery of information through LinkedIn and all these social platforms,
Oh
it's like I haven't seen a lot. I mean, well, I've seen a little bit with behavioral health, right? I know it's a growing need, and
yeah,
COVID thankfully expanded the discussion around mental health and almost allowed it. It really provided a window to talk about a lot more. But the home health care is really what's interesting too, right? I think there was a lot of talk, and then it's kind of quieted down. So I'm glad that you're kind of resurfacing that too, because that's really interesting perspective.
yeah. Well, I think it has to be resurfaced. And, just looking at provider shortages. I mean,
Yeah.
we're looking at about an 86,000 provider shortages by the year 2036. To make that worse, there's a stat I saw the other day. I read, and it's amazing to think about this. And they're calling it the silver wave. But 65 and older being physicians, that accounts for 20% of the physician workforce. Those between the age of 55 and 64 make up another 22%. So you have over
Wow.
40%. And to compound that, that condition, by 2036, the US population is projected to grow over 8%. So we have the perfect storm going on right now of a growing population and not the ability to serve the needs of the healthcare. And
Yeah.
that's not going to get any better. That's why technology is really going to have to step up and close that gap for us.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see, how that gap is closed because I mean, you're presenting some really big, stats and so forth. And, as we look at, so we're talking a lot about this year, and I think that we are going to see some major shifts culturally, just I think that everything seems to be changing. And so for this year, it's kind of the shock and awe, right? I mean, 2024 was a little bit of it, but 2025, I think, is going to be a lot more shock and awe as things become more and more mainstream. So looking beyond 2025, what are some of the things that we might see that kind of are on the forefront, or maybe in the background brewing?
Oh boy, one item really just jumps out at me, and it's a good item and a scary item and an item that's hard to believe. It's quantum computing. When I look at this, it is so much faster than traditional computers are right now.
Yes.
I've seen estimates claiming that they could be millions or even billions times faster. That is incredible. It really depending on the specific problem trying to be solved and due to their ability to perform multiple calculations simultaneously, which we haven't seen before. We're going to see quickness there, but also, to put that in perspective, for the given complex problems, quantum computing can solve things in seconds, while it can take the other computers, decades to complete. But I still don't think you're going to see just a ton. use of it for like the private person. I don't see looking on Reverb tomorrow for a guitar and with that, or eBay, trying to find my best deal. But I think quantum computing is going to change everything. They just got to figure out how to keep those computers cool. And we're seeing companies really like IBM. I mean, over the last 5 years, 6 years now, I guess. In 2019, they came out with the Quantum System 1, I believe. And then they had Quantum System 2 with the Huron chip. And now they got Condor and Kookaburra and was it QuizKit? That's it, QuizKit, the one that just came out. These things are just incredibly fast solving problems. I think the one thing from healthcare, I don't mean to scare people, I would actually worry if I'm in healthcare and bad people get a hold of these computers, because think how fast they could probably figure out passwords. They could get into our systems. They could actually shut down systems. They could shut down pacemakers. They could shut down IV pumps. I mean, they could hold you for ransom in ways that we have never seen before. And it should be concerning to everybody that this could happen. And I would actually say, I mean, we could see the banking industry be extremely affected by this. We could see any industry, stopping cars, airplanes in the sky. So I don't mean to be doom and gloom there, but there's going to have to be some real process checks on this.
It's really interesting because I had a great discussion with my friend Steve, and he was one of the first people I interviewed, and we talked about radar technology. But he proposed probably 2 months ago information about quantum computing. But he said to me specifically, "We're several years away." Well, then we saw Google Willow launch, and I was unfamiliar with quantum computing, but these are some real world things that you're talking about and real world concerns. I'm going to be really interested to hear what information security experts are out there and their take on it as this develops and as we learn more about it. And really, really cool topic to talk about. And if we visit a year from now, it'll be really interesting to see how this discussion, or if it does change, right? Like, what are the risks and whatnot? Because I mean, the computational value of it is unbelievable, but how it affects us is going to be really curious. I'm going to be very curious, and that's just my nature,
I agree.
Yeah. So I know you do, consulting, and you even teach about it. So in your opinion, what does it take to be a great consultant? And I'm genuinely interested in this, as that's what I'm doing. And I consider myself a novice. So I would love to hear your perspectives on what does it take?
I think it takes several things, and it's a blend of things, but there are some basics that I would call kind of around 7, 8 items that you really have to be able to do. And that is, the first thing is, to be a great consultant, you have to be a partner. You can't see yourself as a vendor. Great consultants can define, understand, and solve their partners' pain points. Great consultants are clear that few healthcare organizations buy technology for just the sake of having technology. So they're able to bust those things down to the need. They absolutely understand the industry trends better than the great consultant. Really understand the trends, stuff we were just talking about. So you're a great consultant. You didn't even know it. So you're right there. So great consultants can help healthcare systems create the future. I always say that's, if you want to predict the future, the best way to do it is create it. Peter Efterocker. But great consultancy, like things like AI transformation programs to replace digital transformation programs. That's going to upset everybody, but digital transformation will be replaced soon. Great consultants, they have innovative insights that can be implemented. I always tell people that, coming up with the idea is not the end goal. And often people see that as the end goal. I came up with a great idea. If it can't be implemented, and it can't be implemented in a way that adds value, don't do it. I would also say that great consultants have just a absolute keen sense of internal clarity. They know their organization's mission. They know your organization's mission, vision, and values well. And they understand what executives are thinking. Because when you look at it, I mean, if you're a CIO or anybody in healthcare who's looking at technology, you have different strategies. You have the strategy of your department, but you're also trying to roll that into the strategy of the organization. And if you can't do that, you're in a lot of trouble. So that's where consultants come in and tie those together. And that goes back to, they provide well-formed strategies. Great consultants know when items should be in scope, and more importantly, they know what items should be out of scope. Often we forget that your strategy is a combination of what's in scope and what's out of scope. And that's the consultant that can bring that into you can add a lot of value. The other thing is that they can bring capabilities that evolve with time. great consultants guide you on how to stay relevant in the future and do that without losing your brand and who you are through that process. And then I would say that great consultants, they, in haste, they go fast, but they don't lose perspective on things. So I'll just use I guess the John Wooden quote we've all heard, be quick, but don't hurry. That's
Yeah.
what a great consultant does. This success in the market is precise understanding of the business capabilities and the customer and the patient's needs. It's a combination of those things. And then I say the last item that I really think about, and I talk to my team about a lot, is a great consultant serves a greater purpose. Great consultants provide management and leadership. They not only do things right, but they do the right things. And I think that's why it's exciting to be in healthcare right now. We have so many opportunities to help people with all the items we were mentioned. I mean, we also know that healthcare systems are running at about 2.3% margin right now, which you need about 3% if you've ever worked at a hospital like most
Yeah.
of us, just to keep the lights on and make payroll. So they're running
Right.
at a thin, some even at zero and some negative. So being able to come in, help these organizations out. And I think the other thing is when you talk about serving that greater purpose, if you're a healthcare IT consultant, you're really part of the patient's episode of care. And
No,
you
I
have to
like that.
understand that technology touches everything.
Yes. Yeah. I really like that. And that's the connection to purpose and whatnot. And great value, great insights there, Will. I do appreciate that. For all the consultants listening, I know they're going to be writing these down and trying to see how they can make this happen. So I know we don't have a lot of time. You're a very busy man. I definitely appreciate everything you've been sharing today so far. It's been really fun connecting with you. We know you teach leadership concepts at Cornell. So, can you share few personal tips about leadership?
Sure. And I'm going to hit these about leadership and probably some self leadership I always talk about. And that is the first thing you need to do is the 5 hour rule. I think most of us have heard about that. The 5 hour rule is 5 hours a week. You need to be reading something new. You need to be learning something. You need to be finding something inspiring.
Ooh,
That is a key. I mean, we've heard many people practice this rule for years. I think it's something that's just vital to people. And it kind of goes back to the John F. Kennedy quote, learning or leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. So I think you have to do that. I think the second thing is when I talk about leadership is listen more than you talk. I got to talk a lot today. I've got to call you up and just listen to you for a while. That's the key. If you're listening more than you're talking, you're probably learning. I would also say about leadership, enjoy what you do or find something else.
hmm,
If you're not enjoying it, you're never going to be a great leader. You won't put the time in. The other thing that I can't focus on this enough. And I talk especially to my students who are younger, when I do mentoring for executives, stop focusing so much time on your weaknesses.
hmm,
Spend more time on the things you do well. And that goes back, learn how to delegate, learn how to build a team. It's not the smartest guy in the room syndrome. You want to have, if you're the smartest guy in the room, find another room. We've heard Thomas Jefferson say that and other people.
yeah,
So, find people around you who can, augment those weaknesses, but don't spend all your time on that. If you're a great third baseman, and I always kind of make the joke. I mean, if you're George Brett in his prime, he's winning batting titles. I mean, he's not going to stop, taking batting practice so you can go take some more balls at third base. Do what do what you're good at. Keep going there.
yeah,
The other
yeah.
thing I would say is an exercise that I like to tell people, and I try to do it myself, and it's harder than you think. Spend about just a few minutes and see, because you'll have to take much more time than you think, but write down your own personal vision, and value statement. When you get that mission, vision, and value statement, you think you could write that down in a second. You'll find how hard that is. But if you can do that and keep that on your desk, you will stay focused. You will find time to do the things you need to do. It keeps you really going. That goes back to that. Write down your goals and leave them where you can see them. But I will say, from lessons learned, you don't have to share your goals with other people. It's not necessary. In fact, sometimes it's pressure and even people who kind of go against you on things. So you don't have to do it. The other thing, and you mentioned it earlier, you have to find time to get away with things, whether it's, playing guitar, whether it's running, you have to recharge yourself. I come up with some of my best ideas and I'm out for a run or I'm playing guitar.
Yeah.
I'll be up to, I know what I need to do is this. It just pops in your head when you get away from things. And I'll say the other thing that kind of augments that, and every manager is going to yell when they hear this statement, but if you are more than 80% busy, you will find yourself not getting better at things, but just getting things done.
Yeah.
And they're never getting done better. You have to sit down and think about how you're doing things, how you're going to get better at them, or you will not get better. The next one's one of the toughest things we need to do as leaders or as people. Just remove the negative people in your life, no matter who they are. You can't
Oh,
have negative people. They will hold you down. They will hold your career down. They will hold your life down. They will make you miserable. And one thing I will say, if anybody's young out there listening, no one cares as much about your career as you do. And
mm,
so stop waiting for other people to find the right job for you, the right situation or environment. Leadership is about putting your life's decisions in your hands, not in someone else's.
yeah.
So, yeah, just a couple other things I would say. Trying to run a few things off the top of my head here, but one of the things I think that's very important is know and learn how to network. It's one of the toughest things you can do. Your net worth is your net worth. Your net worth. I mean, it really is. If the people you know are the people who will help you find a job, they're the people who help you find business, they're the people who help you learn, they're people that will introduce you, your net
Yeah.
worth is your net worth. It really is. And
Yeah.
the last one I'll say is never accept or take criticism from someone you wouldn't ask advice from. And I see people do this all the time where they get upset, so and so said something to me, I'm the worst employee ever. Why would you listen to someone that you don't respect or isn't doing a good job? So
Yeah.
keep
I
things in
haven't
perspective.
I haven't heard that one before. And man, that is powerful right there. Like that's a strategy. That's a strategy for like moving forward and developing your own career and how to be a leader. I really love that. And the learning too. The learning
Yeah,
aspect is really neat because that was instilled in me from my grandparents is the importance of education. And it's just like ingrained deeply in me is that constant learning. And so I appreciate hearing that from somebody else too. It's like I've always said, "Oh gosh, what am I going to read today, or what am I going to learn today?" And I spend an hour or two or whatever it may be learning on a continual basis. So I really like that, and I think your students probably just come away from your talks and your lessons with like inspiration. So I
I
think
hope
it's
so.
well, I really appreciate everything today. Again, I know you're busy and I don't want to take all your time. I think we would definitely have another amazing conversation, and I hope that more will come in time. And I just thank you so much for spending the
Thank
little
you,
time with
Chris.
me today.
Always good to see you. Thank you for letting me be part of your show and great to have a cup of coffee with you.
All right. Well, we'll talk soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.